What you're about to hear is a story that will make you question everything you think you know about the people closest to you. This is a story about love, about trust, about betrayal, and about how one moment of discovery can turn an ordinary evening into something unspeakable. Before we dive in, if you're new to American Shadow, hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you the darkest, most shocking true crime stories from across America. And after you hear this story today, drop a comment below and tell me what state you're watching from. I want to know where my American Shadow family is tuning in from tonight. All right, let's begin. The picture-perfect life. It was a warm summer evening in June 2019, the kind of evening where the sun sets late, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The kind of evening where families gather on their porches, where children play in sprinklers, where everything feels safe. In the quiet suburb of Ridgewood, Ohio, there was a house at the end of Maple Street. A beautiful two-story colonial with white shutters and a perfectly manicured lawn. Inside that house lived what everyone in the neighborhood called the perfect couple. Michael and Sarah Thompson. Michael was 38 years old, handsome, successful, a regional manager at a pharmaceutical company. The kind of guy who always had a smile, who volunteered at the local Little League, who never missed church on Sundays. His neighbors would tell you, Michael was a good man, a family man. Sarah was 36, beautiful, warm, the kind of woman who remembered everyone's birthday. She worked part-time as a dental hygienist, not because they needed the money, but because she loved helping people. She baked cookies for the neighborhood kids. She organized book clubs. She was beloved. They'd been married for 12 years. 12 years of what looked like, from the outside, pure happiness. They had 2 children, Emma, who was 9, and little Jack, who was 6. Both kids were thriving, good grades, lots of friends, always laughing, the kind of family you'd see in a commercial, the kind of family that made other people say, goals. But here's what I've learned doing this show, and what you're about to learn if you don't already know it. The brightest smiles often hide the darkest secrets. The cracks begin to show now. If you talk to Sarah's best friend, Jessica, she would tell you that things started changing about 8 months before that June evening. It was subtle at first. Michael started working late. A lot. He'd text Sarah around 5 or 6 p.m., saying he had to finish up a project, had to meet with a client, had to travel for a conference, and Sarah, being the trusting wife she was, she believed him. Why wouldn't she? In 12 years of marriage, Michael had never given her a reason to doubt him. But then, there were other things. Michael became distant. When he was home, he was there physically, but not mentally. He'd be on his phone constantly, texting, scrolling, always keeping the screen tilted away from Sarah. When she'd ask who he was talking to, he'd say, just work stuff, and change the subject. Their intimacy disappeared. And I'm not just talking about physical intimacy, although that dried up too. I'm talking about emotional intimacy. Those long conversations they used to have over dinner, those inside jokes, those moments where you look at your partner and you just connect. All of that vanished. Sarah started to worry. She confided in Jessica one afternoon over coffee. She said, and I quote, "I feel like I'm losing him. Like he's there, but he's not really there anymore." Jessica, being a good friend, tried to reassure her. Maybe he's stressed about work. Maybe he's going through a midlife crisis. Maybe it's nothing. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling, that nagging, gut-wrenching feeling that something was very, very wrong. And then she started noticing the lies. Small lies at first. Michael said he was at a conference in Cleveland, but Sarah accidentally saw his credit card statement, and there were charges from restaurants in Columbus. He said he was working late, but when Sarah drove by his office one night, his car wasn't there. He said he had a business dinner, but he came home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. The lies kept piling up, and Sarah, sweet, trusting Sarah, she started to piece it together. Her husband was having an affair. The discovery. Now, let me tell you something about betrayal. It's not just the act itself. It's not just the cheating. It's the lying. It's the gaslighting. It's the way the person you love most in the world looks you in the eye and tells you everything is fine, when they're destroying you from the inside out. Sarah could have confronted Michael right away. She could have demanded the truth. But she didn't. Instead, she did what a lot of people in her position do. She started investigating. She checked his phone one night while he was in the shower. She knew his passcode because they'd always been open with each other, or at least she thought they had. What she found shattered her world. Hundreds of text messages from a contact saved as J. Peterson. At first, Sarah thought it might be a male colleague, but as she scrolled through the messages, her hands shaking, her heart pounding in her chest, she realized J. Peterson was a woman. And the messages, they were explicit. They were romantic. They were everything a husband should be saying to his wife. But Michael was saying them to someone else. Can't wait to see you tonight. You make me feel alive again. I think I'm falling in love with you. Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. She sat on the bathroom floor, phone in hand, tears streaming down her face. The man she'd built a life with, the father of her children, the person she'd trusted more than anyone, was in love with someone else. But Sarah didn't confront him that night. She put the phone back exactly where she found it. She wiped her tears, and she waited. Because Sarah needed to know more. She needed to know who this woman was. She needed to know how long it had been going on. She needed answers. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah became a detective. She tracked Michael's movements. She checked his credit card statements. She even hired a private investigator, and what she learned made everything so much worse. The woman's name was Jennifer Peterson. She was 29 years old. She worked at the same pharmaceutical company as Michael. She was his subordinate. He was her boss. And they'd been seeing each other for almost a year. A year. 365 days of lies, of betrayal, of Michael coming home and kissing Sarah goodnight, tucking in their kids and pretending everything was normal, while carrying on a full-blown relationship with another woman. The private investigator gave Sarah photos, Michael and Jennifer holding hands at a restaurant 2 towns over. Michael and Jennifer kissing in the parking lot of a hotel. Michael and Jennifer living the life that Sarah thought was hers. Sarah's world collapsed. Everything she believed in, everything she'd built her life around, it was all a lie. And that's when something inside Sarah changed. The confrontation. June 14th, 2019. That's the day everything came to a head. It was a Friday night. Michael came home from work around 7 p.m. Later than usual, but not suspiciously late. He walked in the door with his briefcase, loosened his tie, and called out, "Hey, honey, I'm home." Sarah was in the kitchen. She'd made dinner, pot roast, Michael's favorite. The kids were at her mother's house for a sleepover. Sarah had made sure of that. She wanted this conversation to happen without little ears listening. Michael walked into the kitchen, and he immediately knew something was off. Sarah was standing there, arms crossed, her face unreadable. "Sarah, you okay?" She didn't answer right away. She just stared at him. And then, slowly, she reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She pulled up the photos the private investigator had given her, and she slid the phone across the kitchen counter toward Michael. Michael's face went white. "Sarah, I can explain." "Don't." Her voice was cold. Colder than Michael had ever heard it. "Don't you dare try to explain this away." Michael tried anyway. He said it was a mistake. He said it didn't mean anything. He said he was going through something, feeling lost, feeling trapped. He said all the things that cheaters say when they get caught, but Sarah wasn't hearing it. "How long?" she asked. Michael hesitated. "Sarah?" "How long?" "Almost a year," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah felt like she'd been punched in the gut. Even though she already knew, hearing him say it out loud, it made it real. "Do you love her?" Michael didn't answer. And his silence, that was answer enough. Sarah started laughing, not because anything was funny, but because the alternative was screaming. "You love her. You actually love her." "Sarah, please, get out." "What?" "Get out Of my house. Michael tried to argue. He said they needed to talk about this. He said they needed to think about the kids. He said they could work through this, go to counseling, fix their marriage. But Sarah was done. She told him to pack a bag and leave. Tonight. Right now. And that's when Michael got angry. See, up until this point, Michael had been apologetic, remorseful, playing the part of the guilty husband. But when Sarah demanded he leave, when she took control of the situation, something in him snapped. He told her she was overreacting. He told her she was being dramatic. He told her that maybe if she'd been more attentive, more exciting, more fun, he wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. He blamed her for his affair, for his choices, for his betrayal. And that was the moment Sarah realized she didn't just want him out of her house. She wanted him out of her life. The plan. Now, here's where this story takes a turn. Because what happened next, no one saw coming. After that confrontation, Michael did leave. He packed a bag and went to stay at a hotel. He texted Sarah the next day asking if they could talk, if they could figure things out. But Sarah didn't respond. Instead, Sarah started making plans. She contacted a divorce attorney. She gathered all the evidence of Michael's affair. She prepared to take him for everything he had. The house, the savings, full custody of the kids. She was going to destroy him legally, financially, socially. But here's the thing about betrayal. It does something to your brain. It consumes you. You can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't think about anything else. Every waking moment is filled with rage, with pain, with thoughts of revenge. And for some people, legal revenge isn't enough. Sarah started having dark thoughts. Really dark thoughts. She'd lie awake at night, imagining ways to hurt Michael the way he'd hurt her. She fantasized about confronting Jennifer, about exposing the affair to everyone they knew, about making Michael's life a living hell. But those fantasies, they started to evolve. They started to get darker, more violent. What if Michael just disappeared? What if he had an accident? What if he didn't exist anymore? Now, most people have these thoughts and then push them away. They recognize them for what they are, intrusive thoughts born from pain and anger. They don't act on them. But Sarah couldn't let them go. She started researching. How to make someone's death look like an accident. How to avoid leaving evidence. How to get away with murder. She spent hours on the dark web, reading forums, learning techniques. She was meticulous, careful. She wasn't some crime of passion, heat of the moment killer. She was planning this, coldly, methodically. And the scary part? Sarah was smart. Really smart. She knew that most people get caught because they act impulsively, because they leave evidence, because they have an obvious motive. So Sarah decided to wait, to play the part of the heartbroken wife trying to save her marriage, to lull Michael into a false sense of security. The reconciliation, that wasn't. About 3 weeks after Michael moved out, Sarah called him. She said she'd been thinking. She said maybe they could try counseling. She said maybe, for the kids' sake, they could work on things. Michael was thrilled. He thought Sarah was coming around. He thought he was going to get his family back without losing his girlfriend, because yes, Michael was still seeing Jennifer. He hadn't ended things with her. He wanted both. His stable family life and his exciting affair. Sarah suggested they meet for dinner, just the two of them, to talk things through. Michael agreed immediately. They met at a restaurant on the outskirts of town, somewhere quiet, somewhere they wouldn't run into anyone they knew. Sarah was calm, pleasant even. She asked Michael about work. She laughed at his jokes. She acted like the woman he'd married all those years ago. Michael was relieved. He thought the worst was over. He apologized again for the affair. He said he'd ended things with Jennifer, which was a lie, but Sarah knew that. She'd been tracking his phone. She knew he'd been with Jennifer just 2 nights before, but Sarah didn't call him out. She just smiled, and she suggested they try to rebuild their relationship, slowly, no pressure. Over the next month they met several times, coffee here, lunch there. Michael started to believe that Sarah had forgiven him, that they were going to be okay. He had no idea that Sarah was setting a trap. The night everything changed. August 9th, 2019. That's the night it happened. Sarah invited Michael over to the house. She said the kids were at camp for the weekend and she thought it would be good for them to spend some time together, in their home, to see if they could recapture what they'd lost. Michael arrived around 7 p.m. Sarah had made dinner again, pot roast, his favorite. She'd even opened a bottle of wine. They ate, they talked. Michael started to relax. He even reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. "I've missed this," he said. "I've missed us." Sarah smiled. But it wasn't a real smile. It was the smile of someone who'd already made a decision, someone who'd crossed a line they could never come back from. After dinner, Sarah suggested they move to the living room. She poured Michael another glass of wine and then another. He was drinking more than usual, loosening up, letting his guard down. Around 9 p.m., Michael said he was feeling tired. "Must be all that wine," he joked. "I should probably head back to the hotel." "Or," Sarah said, her voice soft, "you could stay here tonight. Sleep in the guest room. It's late, you've been drinking, it's not safe to drive." Michael hesitated, but then he agreed. He really was tired. Exhausted, actually. He felt like he could barely keep his eyes open. What Michael didn't know was that Sarah had crushed up several sleeping pills and mixed them into his wine. Within 20 minutes, Michael was unconscious on the couch, and that's when Sarah went to work. The murder. Now, I'm going to give you the details of what happened next, but I want to warn you, this gets dark. Really dark. If you need to pause, take a break, process what you're hearing, that's okay. This is heavy stuff. Sarah had planned this meticulously. She'd bought supplies over the past few weeks. Plastic sheeting, duct tape, bleach, trash bags. Things that on their own wouldn't raise suspicion, but together, they told a story. She'd stored everything in the basement, waiting for this moment. While Michael was unconscious, Sarah dragged him down to the basement. He was heavy, dead weight, but adrenaline is a hell of a thing. She managed to get him down the stairs and onto the plastic sheeting she'd laid out. She stood there for a moment looking at him, the man she'd loved, the man she'd built a life with, the man who'd destroyed her. And she felt nothing. No remorse, no hesitation. Just a cold, calculated determination to follow through with her plan. Sarah had decided to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. She'd researched break-ins in the area, knew the police would assume it was related. But first, she had to finish it. She put on gloves, covered her hair, made sure there wouldn't be any forensic evidence linking her to what was about to happen. And then, she did it. I won't go into the graphic details, but Sarah used a method that would make it look like Michael had been killed by an intruder. She made sure it was violent, messy. The kind of scene that would make investigators think it was a crime of passion, a burglary gone wrong, not a premeditated murder by his wife. It took about 20 minutes. 20 minutes to end a life, to erase a person from existence. When it was over, Sarah stood there covered in blood, breathing hard. Not from exertion, but from the realization of what she'd just done. But she didn't break down, she didn't panic, she stuck to her plan. The cover-up Sarah spent the next 6 hours cleaning. She scrubbed every surface. She disposed of the plastic sheeting, the bloody clothes, the gloves. She put everything in trash bags, drove to 3 different dumpsters across town, and got rid of the evidence. She staged the house to look like there'd been a break-in. She smashed a window in the back door. She ransacked the bedroom, took some jewelry, made it look like someone had been searching for valuables. And then, she left Michael's body in the basement, exactly where an intruder would have left it. At 6 a.m., Sarah called 911. She was hysterical, crying, screaming. She said she'd come home and found the back door smashed, the house ransacked, and her estranged husband dead in the basement. The police arrived within minutes. They found exactly what Sarah wanted them to find, evidence of a break-in, a body, a grieving wife. The lead detective, a veteran named Detective Barnes, took Sarah's statement. She told him that she and Michael had been separated but were trying to work things out. She said he'd stayed over the night before because he'd been drinking. She said she'd left early that morning to run errands and came back to this. Her story was consistent, believable, and she was the perfect victim, crying, shaking in shock. Detective Barnes and his team processed the scene. They found the broken window, the missing jewelry, the signs of a struggle. Everything pointed to a robbery gone wrong. But Detective Barnes, he had a feeling, a gut instinct that something wasn't right. The investigation into Michael Thompson's murder lasted for months. The police followed every lead. They interviewed neighbors, co-workers, friends. They looked into Michael's finances, his business dealings, his personal life, and that's when they discovered the affair. Jennifer Peterson came forward during the investigation. She was devastated. She told the police that she and Michael had been in love, that he was planning to leave Sarah, that they were going to start a life together. This gave Sarah a motive, a clear, obvious motive. The scorned wife, discovering her husband's affair, taking revenge. Detective Barnes brought Sarah in for questioning, but Sarah was ready.